Hey, B, I have a question for you.
Yeah?
Is it me or does Manuel sound different than usual?
I think I sound the same as usual.
No, I think it's normal.
I don't know.
Manuel.
He sounds like a lot less of a boomer to me right now. Can't really put my finger on it, though.
A lot less of a boomer, I would hope so.
See, that's not something Manuel would say.
Say something about Skibbity Riz.
Skibbity.
I think that's when you just say April Fool's and then we go to the opening.
April Fools.
Hi, I'm JD.
I'm V.
And I'm Ruby.
And you're reading the wrong way. So yes, welcome again to, are we on episode 7 now of Reading the Wrong Way? Where we are covering Tokyo Babylon. Just a fair content warning before we get into this. This manga does cover topics including bullying, sexual violence, suicide, and a whole bunch of other things. If that isn't right for you in the state you're in, we fully understand that. Just want to make sure you're warned before we start.
Yeah, we also, if you didn't notice, we have Ruby back. We took Manuel out back and shot him, but we luckily still had Ruby locked up in the A to J offices from they were 11, so we just dragged her out for this one.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Collecting dust.
Yes, thank you for joining us again. I'm sure you're happy to see the sunlight.
To also see the sunlight, yes. It's nice.
So yes, Tokyo Babylon, for those that don't know, is a manga by Clamp, better known for, Cardcaptor Sakura mostly. They also did Magic Knight Rare Earth, which we covered in our episode 0. And as a special treat for the friend who got me into Clamp, we're doing a 2-part retrospective of Tokyo Babylon, one of her favorite series. Her birthday's in April and she's getting married in May. So I thought it might be a good time to do a 2-part episode.
Happy birthday. This episode's going to come out after, probably.
Way after. Yes, this manga was serialized in Wings from 1990 to 1993, released across 7 volumes, though I don't know if it was the same for the versions you read because it has had multiple American releases. The chapters themselves were called volumes, so it's going to be really weird if we use that distinction. So I'm just going to use volume to refer to the physical book and chapter instead of volume to refer to the sections of those books.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have physical books. Had some, like the earlier ones, the chapters were long enough to be a full volume, but then they also had volumes that had a few chapters each.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to get straight into it then, unless you have anything else you want to say before we get started.
I don't think so.
I read this manga in like a day or two, like over a month ago. So I'm gonna be a little bit blurry, but I have it open in front of me and I have your notes, so I'm gonna try to follow along as much as possible.
Oh yeah,
forgive me.
Yeah, this is my second time reading the manga. I read it, I think, more than 10 years ago at this point when my friend recommended to me. I'd already gone through a bunch of other Clamp series, including Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, and yeah, I read X before this, which is weird because this is not entirely a prequel to X, but it's about characters who show up in X. So it's
I looked it up afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sequel."
Yeah, a kind of sequel. I will get into that when we get there, but that'll be next episode. So yeah, starting with Volume 1. I don't know if this was in every version, but mine started with the description of Babylon, like the actual city, how it became that great city, and then man grew proud. And they tried to build the Tower of Babylon, for which God punished them, creating the language barrier, from which we get the term to babble.
Yes, that was in, I think that was in every version I noticed. You had a volume, I mean, you had a chapter 0, and we had just the description of Babylon right before chapter 1, but I did go back and find chapter 0. I just didn't really take many notes about it or anything.
Yeah. Chapter 0 apparently is in the Yen Press edition that is coming out, right? Or not? Yeah, Yen Press right now. They're doing their Clamp Premium collection. So chapter 0 starts, "Do you hate Tokyo?" with a shot of Tokyo Tower. I assume it's trying to frame it as like the modern Tower of Babylon, Tokyo as the modern Babylon, and kind of the faults in this great society that they have.
It's so funny that we've done now 2 Clamp series and they both start in Tokyo Tower.
Yeah. Clamp really just likes Tokyo Tower for some reason. We are introduced to our main character, Subaru Sumeragi, as he is exercising a spirit that seems to be attacking a man. As he finished chanting, the spirit shows calm and even thanks him for his actions. He notes that Akie-san has moved on. With that, the man thanks him and Subaru leaves. We're introduced to our other 2 main characters, his older twin sister, Hokuto. They both have stellar names. She's, I believe, the Big Dipper, and he's the Pleiades, which is why the car company also has the same name, or of the same name, also has the constellation on its logo. The man Subaru helped was apparently a star of some sort who tricked women into one-night stands, and one of them killed herself after he broke it off. Hokuto seems to be laughing at the woman's expense, like she's Johnny in the room, but after she stops, she shows just how serious can be. This kind of establishes her as someone who claims to be much more laid back, flighty, superficial, but is clearly much more insightful than she lets on most of the time. I think a lot of these characters are, or her and our other main character that we'll get to in a second, are kind of just hiding who they really are behind these kind of layers.
Yeah, that doesn't quite come out too much until the second half.
Mm-hmm.
But I did kind of get that, especially more with Seishiro.
Mm-hmm.
There's more of that, like, I do think they don't do like a great job of separating it, of like foreshadowing, but you can tell there's something going on.
Yeah. And then, as B just mentioned, our third main character, the final member of this power trio, as I said, is Seishiro Sakurakusa, also named after a constellation, this time Orion. A 25-year-old veterinarian and friend of the Sumeragi siblings.
Friend.
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 Yes.
Okay. I don't know about just friend.
Well, he says he's in love with Subaru. Subaru is kind of figuring out his feelings, and he and Hokuto are clearly just as good of friends as they're going to be at any point.
Subaru is also
Subaru and
16.
Hokuto are, yeah, 16,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's weird. I totally get that.
Very classic 90s manga for you there.
Yes. As they're like discussing the situation, Seishiro calls himself an ally of women, but understands that Subaru exercised the spirit to end her torment rather than for the star's benefit. Seishiro claims he knows Subaru so well because of, I believe this is an exact quote from my version, daily efforts of devotion, and Hokuto clearly ships it too.
Despite being 25.
Yes. Clamp looks at love from lots of weird directions, and I admit this is one of them.
Yeah, I definitely just had to bring that up.
Yes.
Very hilarious. Obviously not okay, but 90s manga, we're just gonna like keep it moving.
Yeah. Subaru is the 13th head of the Sumeragi clan. They are the spiritual protectors of Japan for most of the few remaining onmyoji. Onmyoji are part priest, part like exorcist. They perform various rituals for either dealing with spirits, granting good luck, all that kind of thing. Clamp seems to have taken inspiration from a few other onmyoji-centric series that were going on in the similar time periods and kind of created this to show off, I guess, their thoughts on modern Tokyo. Mm-hmm. But there's also another side of the onmyoji clans in modern Tokyo, the Sakurazuka Mori. And if you were paying attention to Seishiro's last name, Sakurazuka, yeah, that's, I don't want to say that's a question. That's a thing that gets brought up a lot of times, that he might be one of those things. He denies being in the family business at this point.
It is. It's kind of written as if it's supposed to be a mystery. I don't think it is one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty clear from the start that he's the guy.
Yeah. Though you could make a drinking game out of every time Hokuto asks him about it, and then every time he just changes the subject as soon as it goes on.
Yeah.
This goes into Subaru's second job of the day, exercising an office lady. We see more of his skills, including acrobatics and martial arts. Turns out the woman's Chanel suit was haunted, cursed by the spirits of those who made it. I exploited, and the anger and jealousy of other women who wanted it because they were like fighting it over sale. That was an interesting angle for me, like of both of those things combined. I think this chapter was completely new. It wasn't in the Dark Horse version I had read all those years ago.
Yeah, because I did not read this chapter 0, so I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit lost right now.
Yeah, I remember like trying to read through it really quick because I found it at the last minute.
Actually, we also get another bit of like setup for the main series, and as I call it, totally not foreshadowing. Seishiro says he likes Tokyo because it gleefully walks the path of destruction. Yeah, that doesn't make you sound evil, Seishiro.
I'm not from this evil clan, don't worry about it. But damn, I love how evil Tokyo is. Like, okay.
Subaru admits that he also loves Tokyo, but doesn't really give reasons other than not those reasons, which, okay, good on you, Subaru. You probably have some good reasons for liking this city.
Yeah, I like Tokyo too. Not the same way you do, though.
Not for those reasons. That's a little weird.
So that's the end of chapter 0. Moving on to our first main chapter, Babel. Trouble in Tokyo Tower. Oh, okay, we're just hitting Tokyo Tower twice in 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Localized tremors on the observation deck. Subaru goes to investigate and gets an immediate psychic ping.
Do they do Tokyo Tower and like any other? Is this like a clamp thing? Is this what they're always?
Let's see. X card captor Sakura. I think it shows up in Tsubasa when they visit a version of Tokyo. Do they go there in Holic? I don't remember. I'll have to reread that. And I haven't read enough of the other minor series to tell you. But yes, they like drawing Tokyo Tower a lot.
It's funny. It is such a recognizable landmark, but I feel like I so rarely see it in manga or anime, except when it's Clamp.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Clamp is half the reason I went there when I went to Tokyo in February.
Any ghosts?
No, luckily. I also made sure to go I did go at night, but none of them there, thankfully. But I went at night to avoid seeing 3 girls get isekai'd in the day.
Did you get isekai'd?
No, thankfully.
Manuel got isekai'd, and that's why
Yeah,
he's not here.
That's why he's not here. Okay.
Well, I don't think they do it the same way anymore. I think now they use trucks.
Yeah. So yes, as he's doing that, he runs into Hokuto and Seishiro, who are shenaniganing, as I just like to put it. Hokuto points out a thing that will come up multiple times in this series, that Subaru apparently never takes his gloves off by orders from the grandmother. I just want to know, how does he manage his daily life not taking off his gloves? I don't wear gloves that often, but I feel like I could not do like a full day's like routine with them on.
He's just built different.
Yeah, I guess when you've got like... Sorry, you want to go ahead, Ruby?
Oh, no, I was just saying I couldn't do it wearing gloves all day.
Yeah, he's got, 7-ish years of training at it? I'm sure he's figured it out by now. So yes, the earthquake ghost strikes.
Is there at any point, like, a fake reason why he doesn't take off his gloves? Like, why they told him not to take them off? Because I don't remember.
No, I don't think so. It's just, hey, Grandma told me to do this. I'm following Grandma's orders.
Because at some point, I mean, I know he's very, how do you put it? He's a good boy.
Yes.
But I feel like at some point he'd be like, why? Like, he's alone in his room or something. Why not just, like, take it off?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that this teenage boy has never taken his gloves off.
I'm just like, how does he wash his hands? Right?
Apparently he doesn't. Either that or he just...
He doesn't wash his hands?
Yeah, they must stink under there.
Glove.
Just...
Either that or he just pours hand sanitizer right down there and just lets it soak in.
He's like, I'm marinating.
So yes, earthquake ghost strikes. Subaru puts up a barrier, but it seems that the ghost can overpower that. And this is where we get our first look at like Seishiro's own Miyoji skills. He gets a moment to swoop in and save Subaru. Subaru notes like, oh yeah, I forget he can do this kind of stuff too. But totally not the Sakurazu Kamori, guys. Don't worry. And then we get to what happens on this series. He and the spirit just start like talking it out.
Yeah, these are my favorite parts of the series because I have issues that we'll talk about later, but the main the main stuff that I like about Tokyo Babylon is when it's just two characters talking.
Mm-hmm. So yes, this spirit in her life, she was named Kazue Kato, which I forgot the note I wrote, or that's noted. She has the same like name as some actress who uses a screen name or stage name. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you knew that too." Like to Seishiro, who points it out. She has the classic story of moving to the big city from the sticks in hopes of becoming famous. She barely scraped by, but clung on to that dream. She would come to Tokyo Tower despite the large, for her, I guess it was only like $7 when I went, I think, fee to see the stars, as she put it, the stars above and these stars kind of below the glowing lights of the city. It's the hope of the city and kind of the community, even if she never felt a part of it. She decided a movie audition would be her last chance to make it big, so she slept with the producer. But she actually got the part this time, so I guess that's a win in some sense. But then the movie got canceled because the star who was supposed to be in the main role turned into a diva and left. Kazue laments that those with talent and power can destroy others' livelihoods on a whim. She had already told people about how she was going to be having her big break, and in her despair, she jumped off an apartment building to her death.
Yeah, that's a big thing in this series, is about not causing trouble for other people.
Mm-hmm. Not causing trouble for other people, having your dreams or your like conceptions of what Tokyo or just life is kind of broken, and having to live with that, or in this case, die with that. It comes up in various chapters.
A lot of people in this series are like suffering, and like their suffering is prolonged because they don't want to like be a burden or a nuisance.
Mm-hmm. I say she even notes how she never really felt happy in Tokyo. She didn't really like anything about it. She didn't really have any friends to spend time with. She was so devoted to just scraping by and trying to chase that dream that she never really spread out beyond that. But by taking that time to kind of listen and empathize with her and call her out on, I think, a bit of her own selfishness, as I thought it was, but that might just be contextual or my own opinion. They're able to make her like Tokyo just a little and send her off to the other side. To honor her dream, they also go up to the upper observation deck and just look out at Tokyo from there. So I think that these two have been this is another great introduction to what we're doing here, or what the series is doing here. You get the sense of, oh, okay, he's dealing with ghosts or ghost spirits of sorts. They're not all evil, and they can be learned from by talking to them and kind of talk down like this, while shedding some light on, I'll say, the darker side of the Japanese dream in this case, because if this were American, we call it like the American dream. But those dreams are like stardom and making it big from absolutely nothing.
Mm.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think he does kind of like call her out on her selfishness, which I enjoyed personally because it feels like it's a little bit different from most protagonists that I would be expecting from something like this, being like, oh, happy-go-lucky, you know, I'm not going to call you out on your wrongs. Everything's fine. I'm just going to agree with you, and you're going to be like a happy little ghost and go away. But I was like, oh, okay. Like, we're talking some real stuff that's a little bit more interesting. And to agree with B, to just, that is kind of what I like about this manga, is when it is just two characters talking, especially like whatever character it happens to be that he's like exercising, or
the side characters in each chapter.
It's this, the side characters.
And another warning, since I realize is it might be more in later volumes, but sometimes, at least as far as I can tell, characters don't really have names, like the side characters. So it's just gonna be like the old man, the woman. We'll do our best to describe them to make sure that if there are multiple people who could line up like that you can tell them apart. Because I just remember going back to my notes. Oh yeah, the old man. Does he have a name? No, he's just the old man.
Yeah, they think they just call him like old man.
I say, moving on to our next chapter, volume 1.5, Destiny. This is our first time we see Subaru having a dream / flashback of meeting a mysterious older guy beneath falling cherry blossoms.
Mysterious.
Yes.
Mysterious.
I wonder who he is.
The older boy tells Subaru that cherry blossoms get their color from the blood of corpses buried beneath the trees. He makes a bet with Subaru, but Subaru doesn't hear it. With that, the older boy leaves, saying, "I'll let you go." Yes, we will come back to this scene multiple times adding bits and pieces onto it until we finally get to see the whole thing, but not right now.
Yeah, I wonder if the older, taller guy who showed up in the
Sakura?
around like the cherry blossoms. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if we're gonna see him again.
I don't think so.
Nah.
I think he's a one-off character.
I wonder who it could be.
His like story of how cherry blossoms get their color has always stuck with me because I remember also seeing only yesterday, the Ghibli movie, not long after reading this, and they use like they tell like a similar legend where like I think it's some other plant gets its color. It might be like saffron or something, not saffron, but something that makes like red dye gets its color because people prick their like fingers on the thorns and it spills onto the plants. And I just remember like coming out of that movie, it's like, yeah, the only thing I could think about when they were talking about that was this mysterious older dude telling this story about how Sakura petals get their colors from the blood of corpses buried beneath them.
Is this I'm not familiar if this is like actual folklore or if Clamp made this up.
It could be either one.
I feel like I've heard something similar in an old anime from like the early 2000s called Raw Zephron, but I can't remember. It's been forever since I've seen it. So, but it seems like it's a familiar concept to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This also might be tying into like as this older gentleman says, they're supposed to be pure white, but they are stained with blood. I also reflects some of the darker views of how like you expect society or Tokyo just in general to be like this pure and great thing, but it is stained with blood, sweat, and tears of everyone living in that city.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, pretty metal. I like it. I was like, okay, you know what? This is a little hardcore.
We then see how Subaru and Seishiro first met. Subaru was chasing a bird, Shikigami. That's like a familiar, it's generally made of like paper or some similar material. Used to help magicians. Onmyoji are especially said to be able to create and control them. He's chasing that through Ikebukuro Station, and he tripped. Seishiro claims they've met before, but apparently Subaru doesn't remember it. As always, Seishiro tries to play it off as, oh yeah, we were just lovers in another life. Once again, take a shot if you're doing it every time Seishiro avoids a question. This reminds Subaru of the other guy, but he says, oh yeah, he and Seishiro give off completely different vibes. Because, Seishiro's just the kind, pet-loving veterinarian. He would never tell him something like how cherry trees or sakura trees get their coloration from blood.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And Seishiro wears glasses.
Yeah.
The other guy didn't.
This is like when people try and tell me that Clark Kent and Superman are the same person. But
yeah,
one wears glasses. Yeah. They decide to go to see the cherry blossoms in Ueno Park. And Subaru finds a tree in full bloom. It's not supposed to be, I think, that time of the year at this point. But so seeing one in full bloom is kind of special. And it reminds him of that dream flashback thing he had at the beginning of the chapter. Seishiro approaches him at the tree, takes off his glasses, and mentions that story one more time, just as if to say, yeah, that guy was me, but no, clearly different people. It disturbs Subaru, who repeats himself that it can't be Seishiro. It just can't. See? He's saying it out loud. It just can't be true. No one has ever said one thing that they know is a lie. Disregard Ruby trying to pretend to be Manuel earlier in this episode. Which moves us on to Physical Volume 2 and Chapter 2, Dream. We start with a girl named Mitsuki coming home and hearing people gossip about a girl in the neighborhood being assaulted by delinquents, including someone calling the unknown victim, quote unquote, damaged goods. Mitsuki panics as she enters her home, repeating the conversation in her head to drown out the voices. She decides to dream an endless dream. Isn't that also a Junji Ito story? Or no, it's a long dream, isn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's one of his short stories that got adapted, and that's the only reason I know it exists at the moment. But cut to November 11th, not the Darker Than Black character, the actual date. When Subaru is meeting his grandmother, and they're discussing his job at Tokyo Tower. His grandmother warns him of the dangers of the Sakurazu Komori, since some government VIPs suspect they were involved in a recent death. grandmother says that, of course, not every Sakurazuka could be a member of the Sakurazuka Mori. You would think I haven't been saying this for 10 years. Because there's only one. Highlander style, I guess?
Yeah, this is... Again, I feel like they're trying to, like... They're making it pretty obvious, but they're also kind of trying to make it still seem like a mystery, and I wish they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because if they would just let us, like, just admit from the beginning, like, yeah, Seijiro's the guy, then they could have built up his character more for the way that it ends, that we'll talk about, I guess, in the next episode.
Yeah, but I was more intrigued, but like obviously going through this the first time and having seen already watched X, that which deals with like the fallout of this later. We'll get to that in the next episode. How it's kind of built up is strange, but I think it's also like trying to preserve some of that, like you said, just by saying, oh yeah, there's only one Sakurazuka Mori at the time, so maybe he could be innocent, or maybe he's not in that position just yet, but he could be, for whatever reason, tapped to be in that position just by however they work. They are clearly a bit more mysterious than most other clans, like the Sumeragi are fairly public facing, while the Sakurazuka Mori seem to be almost entirely private.
Yeah, they're doing a little bit of work that could feel like everything's a little bit of a red herring. Like, you could be surprised by the end. Maybe there's a different reveal. But it is still pretty obvious.
Later that night, Subaru dreams of a girl with an umbrella that says she hates him because he's not normal. After breakfast with Seiichiro and Hokuto, Hokuto and Subaru live in neighboring apartments. So they just kind of like pop into each other's place whenever, and Seiichiro is generally along for the ride too, though he lives in a different part of the city, I believe. At least he works in a different part of the city. Seiichiro, in fact, gives Subaru a ride to his next job. Mitsuki has been in a coma for 4 months, meaning that her incident happened somewhere in July, probably, maybe late June. But there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with her. Upon seeing her, Subaru realizes that she's the girl from his dream. She's the one who said, "You're not normal, and I hate you." Luckily, he's enough of a professional to go on with the job. He uses like those shared memories that they have to enter her consciousness, but she resists his initial attempts to help her, calling him a liar. She doesn't want to wake up, and Subaru is kind of too kind to hurt her. Seiichiro, in another display of his power, sends a hawk Shikigami. Remind me again, what was Subaru chasing when he and Seiichiro first met?
Was it also a hawk? I forgot.
It was a bird of some sort, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would apply to this work, but in Holic, they also talk about how Shikigami sometimes take different forms depending on their purpose. Like, one takes the form of a butterfly because something is close distance by. Probably not for Seiichiro, just because butterflies are generally seen as much more gentle, but hawks when they're going longer distance. So that was just something I was thinking about, like reading this, having come from a different one of their works. So yes, the hawk Shikigami flies in and almost literally fractures her psyche. We see the events of her assault, and even if she was all but what society would call the perfect victim in this, or perfect innocent victim in this case, randomly picked off the street and resisting, there were still people who would laugh off what had happened to her, and that's just terrible, a terrible thing that society is still like dealing with on multiple levels. She does touch on the running theme of this series, that everyday people have their happiness and future just destroyed by others, and none of us think that can happen to us until it does. Once again, another thing that is sadly all too common in this world. She also reveals that she had a crush on Subaru and wanted him to notice her, but because Subaru is such a, I guess, pure soul, he's just kind to everyone in equal amounts. When she told him he wasn't normal, she meant that he was special to her. But she realizes how much she has hurt him and apologizes for that. Subaru, in turn, convinces her that her mother still cares for her and would be saddened to lose her. With this, she's finally able to accept his help and wake up. So she at least gets a happier ending than some of the other people in these spiritual situations.
Yeah.
And I did think it was cute that she went back and was like, "Oh, I'm sorry for what I said." That was sweet.
And that leads us into a chapter that doesn't have a number. It's just called Annex, at least in my version.
This one's the best chapter in the manga, I think.
Yeah, I agree. This one's my favorite.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, its title is Smile. One night in Kabukicho, Hokuto saves a foreign girl from being attacked. The two of them talking to in front of, I think it's the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building. Just going off like the depiction of it, but I don't remember exactly where that's located nearby. But I know it's close enough to Kabukicho that I think might have been able to run there. Hokuto says she won't ask any questions, but she is willing to listen. Turns out this woman, who this is one of the characters' name, just isn't given, so she's just the hostess at this point. She's a hostess. She's from a family of 7, working to support them. She is an undocumented immigrant, and those men that Hokuto saved her from earlier are cops. She doesn't want to be sent back because it would mean the end of support for her family. She laments that in her 2 years here, she hasn't made a single friend or found a reason to smile. She fears that she will never understand the Japanese spirit or make friends in Japan. I think this speaks a lot to people moving to new places, but especially immigrants in places where they have to learn the language and kind of assimilate into society.
Yeah.
And I say that as the grandson of immigrants as well, so it kind of hit home a bit closer for that. When the police finally catch up to them, Hokuto does some impromptu magic and manages to knock them out. She offers to be the hostess's first Japanese friend. They formally introduce themselves, but we never hear the girl's name because in the end, I think it doesn't matter all that much. It only really matters that she's a human just like the rest of us, and she deserves our kindness, our sympathy. She hasn't done anything really wrong in the grand scheme of things. So,
yeah, I think this one is just a really nice, like, contained chapter that really heavily hits home the theme of empathy. That is, like, kind of the biggest theme running through the entire manga. And I think this one just, like, it kind of, like, you cut away all of the stuff about, like, Seishiro, all the, like, the serialized, like, weird plot mystery stuff, and you just get to, like, the heart of what Tokyo Babylon is trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why this one is such a, like, you could read this chapter without having to read the rest of the manga, and it's just such a perfect little, like, story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was really excited to see, like, Hokuto do something a little bit more than, like, stand around and be like, oh my god, I should date.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything about this, like, when I started reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw, like, they're magic twins, hell yeah, like, I'm gonna see, like, this girl, like, do some cool, like ass kicking with some magic stuff. And no, like, she doesn't really, like, not till the end. And then even then, I think you don't get to see what she actually does unless you read X.
Yeah.
Which I'm not gonna do. So I was disappointed, but, like, reading this chapter, I was like, oh yeah, finally some, like, Hokuto action. Like, that's what I wanted to see more.
Yeah, this is the last time in the series she does anything. Also the first time.
Pretty much. So, but, at least I got a nice little nugget of, like, hell yeah, like, girl kicking ass. Well, she kicked a little bit ass.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see her, like, interact a little bit more normally, because she only really interacts with, like, Subaru and Seishiro, and it is, like, pretty weird. But this was nice. This was really refreshing, and I wished there was more of this in the manga, like, moving forward. But still, this is like a great one shot almost.
Yeah. Rereading this chapter, I realized that in my memories of this series, I had combined this chapter and another one from a chapter we're going to cover in part 2. And, like, I remember, like, this one that was mostly just them talking on with someone. So I was like, oh yeah, that was Subaru, right? And it's like, no, it's Hokuto. And the thing that keeps being brought up a lot is that they look very much alike because they're twins, but they're not identical twins. They're, I guess the trope is half identical twins. Identical in everything except gender, essentially.
They look really alike. It is sometimes a little difficult to figure out who's talking and who's not.
So yeah.
Also, let's just mention I just wanted to mention really quick, Hokuto's outfits, pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty great outfits. That's usually how I tell them apart. I'm like, all right, who's who's wearing a killer outfit. Like
Yeah.
they both dress pretty good, but obviously Hokuto gets to do a little bit more because she is like the stylish sister in a way.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, this one's wearing something a little bit ridiculous. Let me check those hands. No gloves. Okay, cool. It's Hokuto.
Yeah, one thing you can definitely say for Clamp is they have style.
They have
Yes.
style.
They love drawing characters in fabulous costumes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hokuto is definitely the fashionista of the group. I can't remember if this is explained in X or not, or just I'm adding on my own interpretation, but I think she was, as the firstborn, she was kind of supposed to take over. We see that the grandmother had been the head of the clan before, so it wasn't something like preventing a woman from taking over. So I assumed she just didn't want it and kind of just wanted to live a normal life. The same thing she wants for Subaru that we'll see in upcoming chapters. So that was always my interpretation of why she never does as much of that. It was just something you had brought up in discussing this chapter. I just wanted to put it in here before we got to volume 3, which has 2 chapters, Call A and Call B.
This one was fun. I liked this one. This is a great concept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A group of teenagers seem to believe that they are the chosen ones. Great heroes were born to fight in the coming end of times. So yeah, I note that this like storyline, or this like 2-set chapter duology, ends up reflecting on like the internet, weirdly prescient for like 1992. I think it might have been at this point, maybe 1991.
Yeah, and I think specifically like Japanese stories in the 90s talking about the internet is one of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there's an anime or manga or movie or anything like this, it's always very, I mean, like you said, prescient is a really good word to use here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I note that just because it is a bunch of people meeting up online with essentially an anonymity and basically harassing or terrorizing, in some cases, like people, and especially working with things they don't know, spreading misinformation. They somehow predicted the stuff that would be happening on the internet like 20 years too early.
No, I was gonna say, and using like the phone system that they use, I've never heard of it, so that was really interesting for me too. That I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know this was a thing that existed at one time.
Yeah. Party lines, we'll get to it, but Seishiro is waiting for Subaru at an aquarium for a date. I have it in quotes. I don't remember if it's technically supposed to be one of those, or if they're just kind of meeting up and calling it that, and he's calling it that.
Yeah, I mean, Seishiro always says everything's a date.
Mm-hmm. He's
I don't
XL,
think
okay.
Subaru knows that any of it's ever actually supposed to be a date.
Yeah.
It's kind of the whole thing is they're setting it up as a romance, but Subaru's never actually receptive to it.
At all. He's also 16.
Yeah, and they also have like this idea that he always thinks it's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously,
yes.
But the thing is, it's never obviously because this is a grown man. It's always obviously, well, because he's a man and I'm a boy.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen. It nothing to do with age ever.
Yeah. It's like, you're just like my sister's weird friend. Like, you're just
yeah.
Yes, you buy us stuff sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You give me rides. It's fine. Yes, Subaru is running late because another case he just got off of. He's apparently never stops working. They have a plan to get.
This really, as the series goes on, like really builds and builds to how much he is just working all the time.
Yeah, they plan to go to afternoon tea, but they also see a fortune-telling service on the way. And we learned another thing about the Sumeragi. Apparently it's considered, or apparently they don't let Sumeragi get their fortunes told by anyone outside the clan, just because it's kind of like keeping up appearances. They can't be like the great like clan of diviners and exorcists on Myoji, that kind of stuff, and have someone else tell their fortune. That wouldn't be not polite. That wouldn't be proper decor or decorum.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Voltron's gonna take my like fortune right here, but I'm like
Zoltar?
Some powerful. Oh, was it Voltar? My bad.
No, it's Zoltar. I think in big.
You said Voltron. I was like, yeah, it's a robot. Yeah, it's good enough.
Same thing.
Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to make a funny reference.
Yes,
I'm
sorry.
too young for it. I'm not
I realized that when you
boomer.
said you didn't know what a party line was.
Yeah.
You're exactly the opposite of me.
Yes.
Manuel would be like, yeah, back in my day, we had these all over the place.
Back in my day, there's this movie called Big with Tom Hanks.
No, back in his day, there was a movie called
Voltar was his mom.
what the Great Train Robbery was the Thomas Edison movie. What? Yeah, it's an
Over my
old
head,
movie.
dude.
I'm just making a point to say Manuel's old.
Okay.
He doesn't even have to be here for this.
First Seishiro is eventually able to convince him to get their compatibility checked using their birthday and their birthplace. Turns out they're, I guess, not that good a match.
What? No way.
Yeah.
So this was funny because for me, when I read this chapter, I was immediately like, "Oh, he gave them false information."
Mhm.
But also at the same time, Seishiro is the April Fool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Clamp does love giving characters April Fools as the birthday. They consider it like the day they were
Another
founded as
thing
well.
they do.
Yes. I think because they started, or they consider like their group's birthday to be April 1st. And it's
Oh,
also
so
like
what
the
they're
start
saying
of
is
like
that
a business
Seishiro
year.
is their self-insert character.
I mean,
God.
along with
You know
Sakura from Cardcaptor Sakura, Princess Sakura from Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles is a completely different character.
Oh my God.
Shaoran from Tsubasa, who is also a different character than the Shaoran in Cardcaptor Sakura. Kimihiro Watanuki, whose last name literally means April 1st. Like it is written with the characters for, was it 4 moon, 1 day, or 1 sun, April 1st? Because it symbolizes when they would move from like the heavier woolen kimonos into lighter cotton ones. So Watanuki. Thank you for this
They've
lesson on
obviously got a
Japanese
couple
etymology.
things. They've got a couple things they love to talk about every
Yes.
time.
Yeah, okay. This is my second Clamp series I've ever read. The first one was like Magic Knight Rares over a decade ago. So I'm just like, oh, like, okay, I'm learning some like Clamp lore if I decide to continue with, reading their stuff.
Yeah. My friend who got me into Clamp really loves Clamp, so I read a lot of it and I heard a lot of it from her. So sometimes if I'm adding in things that don't have as much of a that I couldn't find myself, it's because I heard it from her and I assume she knows her stuff. But yes, where we were getting, they got their match. They're not really a match, at least according to that. Subaru gets confused for a girl again.
Yeah, this is another scene where the receptionist here, I think, is like, "Oh wow, it's such a dream to be dating a high school student," and
It's
the
like, yeah,
the
Japan in the
faux pas
mix.
is that she thinks he's a girl rather than that they're almost 10 years apart
Mhm.
and that he's a child.
I don't know if like stuff like this was happening so much in Japan in like the late 80s, early 90s that it just shows up a lot unquestioned. It's weird from I guess a more modern point of view. Probably weird to a lot of people at the time too, but it's apparently something that happened enough that it showed up a lot in pop culture. Anyway,
Yeah, for sure.
Subaru gets a page from Hokuto, which informs him he has a new case. Also, Hokuto is dressed like, I think, Alice from Alice in Wonderland with the white rabbit's ears. I think I actually have a clear file of her in that costume, along with Seishiro and Subaru in like other appropriate costumes that I got when there was the Clamp exhibit last year at Animate LA. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to talk about that.
No, I am flipping through it to try to find this outfit because I know it's a killer outfit and it's a great outfit.
Mhm. Yes. So, getting on to the actual supernatural things going on in this chapter. Apparently, there's some supernatural shenanigans going on a party line called Q2. It's 1991, so someone has to explain what that means. Essentially, a group of girls they're all calling each other. They're calling into one thing, talking, running up the phone bill, as you did in the 90s, and making mystical prank calls. Sadly, rather than just asking someone if their refrigerator's running, they seem to also be performing coordinated magical attacks.
Yeah, I don't think they see it as prank calls, but everyone else sees it as prank calls.
Yeah. Just because they don't have the required magical knowledge to make anything terribly big at the moment. I also needed to look this up to see if they were running concurrently or if X was just in the planning stage at this point. But this volume feels like full of either foreshadowing for X that would come later or just like use of some of the ideas that would show up in X. or X
They
1999.
did run concurrently, but I don't know if this specific volume, if X had started yet.
Yeah, because it talks about 1999, the end of the world. We see dream seers, like in various chapters of this, people who can see things in their dreams. All these come up in X, and apparently Nanase Okawa of Clamp had been working on an apocalyptic manga idea for about a decade before this came out. Like, I guess in middle school or something, she was like, yeah, I'm going to plan this giant apocalyptic manga inspired by Devilman. Let's go.
Oh man, that's really interesting. I didn't know that they were running at the same time at all.
Yeah, Clamp
Like-
loves to run multiple series at the same time. Like, not even counting
Yeah,
Tsubasa and
makes
Holic, which are like series that were meant to be running concurrently. Sometimes they'll just have like 2 or 3 series going if they can make it.
Yeah, I don't know too much about X, but I think that the Tokyo Babylon stuff doesn't really come up until later in that series.
Yeah. It's been a while since I read X, but X is my favorite Clamp work. The only reason I didn't pick it is because it's 18 and a half volumes, because they never finished volume 19 when they halted work on it. And that I don't want to take up a half year just going through that. But if we ever do
Save
reading
that
the
for
long
reading
way,
the long
believe
way.
me, I will bring it up. And as I put, this is an interesting case, or this interesting parallel here to the modern internet, where like-minded people can meet up and form a community, but how it can also lead to them believing they're chosen ones of some higher calling and staging attacks on innocents based on these conspiracy theories, which has clearly never happened in real life, right?
Mm-mm.
Nope. Okay, cool.
never.
So, yes, Subaru calls into this line and hears from the girls. When he starts questioning them, they start attacking him with reverse sutras. All of this magic in the series is generally based on some kind of religious stuff, mantras, sutras, that kinds of things. So these sutras are being said backwards. Forwards, they're a blessing. Backwards, they're a curse, apparently. That's how the magic works in this series. And because phones connect places physically as well, they pass through barriers that Subaru had up to protect him from this kind of thing. He is, however, able to negate them, but he has to say his own stuff forwards. We also start to learn the nasty side effects of especially attack magic in this case. In some ways, it will reflect back at the person who casts it, and more advanced casters know how to negate or mitigate that risk either through other defensive spells or through drawing it away into something else. Subaru gets a bit excessive when defending himself, which causes them all to vomit, but they're otherwise okay at this point. As this chapter of the duology ends, he vows to stop them for their own sakes and for everyone else's, because he knows that they're dabbling in things that they shouldn't really be dabbling in without proper supervision, especially because they don't know the effects of what they're going to do. So yes, this is one of my probably favorite parts of this, but also just because I like either the shared ideas or the intentional foreshadowing for X at this time.
And I never read X.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's why I'm like, oh, okay, they were running at the same time. That's interesting. I could see that really adding to the experience of reading Tokyo Babylon. I probably would have really liked it at the time, but I had no idea. I was thinking of it as no, it's a sequel, so obviously I'll read it after, duh. But I had read that one's on hiatus as well too, right?
Yeah.
Hiatus.
X was supposed to run
on
for
hiatus, like Malice Mice is on hiatus.
Yeah, it's on hiatus. Is it Nana is on hiatus?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how another friend of mine compared her to. She's it's been on hiatus for 20 years at this point. I don't think they're ever coming back to it, which is sad because it's really great character work. There's a setup for an ending that's just never going to come.
Manuel was just talking about hiatuses recently. Was it in a private chat or in a group chat? I don't even remember. I
don't know. It might have been a private chat if I don't remember it. I know there was some talk he mentioned earlier about Aizawa returning to Nana, but as far as I know, that hasn't turned up anything yet. But anyway, moving on to our next chapter.
No, here we go. This is important. Or it might be, because this is about bands, but this is Manuel telling me. So we're bringing him onto the podcast now. Have I ever mentioned?
Great Manuel voice.
Yeah. No, but he was talking about bans, and he was saying the difference between breaking up and a hiatus in Japan is a legal distinction, to do with trademark equivalencies and publishing rights. So that they go on hiatus instead of break up. But okay. I don't know if that is the same for a manga, but that's what he was talking about for bans.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, completely different series that has nothing to, or has connections to this one, but nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. But yeah, very interesting point. It might.
It might be why that one's on hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess Tokyo Babylon's on
Tokyo
hiatus.
Babylon. Yeah, the last chapter of this episode, Call B. Call B. Okay, I don't want to get claimed for the might use well Blondie song, so we're moving on. Subaru uses his Shikigami to find the prank callers and learns just how much backlash they have generated when he sees a massive poltergeist around one of the rooms. This girl has made a barrier around the room, but it's so weak that he is able to break through it and has to cast another one and helps defend her when the spirits rush in. He calls back into the party line, despite being sick from his own spells, and tries to help one of them. And when the other two join in, she accepts his help. And when the other two join in, they call her a traitor and start attacking Subaru, who's clearly, as we see, just trying to help. He can't really stop defending himself, or stop to defend himself, I'm sorry. So he presses on, just trying to help this one girl. He succeeds, but passes out. Then Seishiro knocks Hokuto out and takes over this conversation. And we get to see just how cruel Seishiro can be. We get some more X foreshadowing when 7 draconic figures appear behind him as the remaining girls try to attack him. But Seishiro counters them, leaving them scared and injured. He says no one can hurt Subaru until their bet is complete. Wait, didn't someone else mention a bet with Subaru earlier?
Yeah, someone. I don't know.
Yeah, we never saw who that guy was, so maybe just
that one-off guy.
Yeah, maybe Subaru just has a gambling addiction. We'll see in the next episode. He also refutes their desire to be seen as special and says they're not living in reality. So he also shows them what being special really means. In the end, the two Seishiro attacked are, it says, driven insane. And while the one Subaru helped is at least better, her family still doesn't believe her account of what happened. I mean, anything supernatural, society that doesn't believe that much in it is going to be a tough sell, I will admit. Saying, oh yeah, my friends and I got into black magic and, started crank calling people. And then we just got the wrong person who decided to, use magic back at us. She at least...
I thought it was fun.
Mm-hmm. She at least seems to be getting some therapy. And our main trio, Subaru, Hokuto, and Seishiro, all at least hope that if they get proper help and understanding, they might overcome this ordeal, but lament that Japan isn't as accepting as the US when it comes to mental health, which is saying a lot, I think, for how the US sometimes sees mental health.
Especially right now.
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to even know what it was like in 1990. I think it might still been 1991 at this point, or 1992. Subaru is understandably upset, but Hokuto tells him just it's a job at this point. You can't. Yes, you could be compassionate for everyone, but you can't be compassionate for everyone all the time. You're just going to completely lose yourself, which I think plays into kind of this thing that the line between having empathy for people and just being completely selfless while not having any true self at this point.
Yeah.
So yes, seeing as we've just gotten, I think, our first big taste in how cruel Seishiro could be, I think this is going to be a good point to call this episode. So, Ruby, what are your thoughts so far on this?
My thoughts so far. Let someone else go first.
Okay. My thing is it has grown on me in the time it took me to read the second half. I was really pretty negative after reading the first 3 volumes. I was like, man, I don't care about Seishiro as a character. I was pretty bored. I have as a little bit of time passed, the stuff that really stuck with me is the individual the side characters of each chapter and the way that happens. And I think it kind of feels like it's split into 2 different series. There's the main trio and their sort of whole thing going forward through the plot, and then there's the individual episodic the stuff that I feel is the meat of the series, and the more philosophical, the more social type stuff, the stuff that isn't the plot. That really sticks with me, and I'm a lot more positive on it, and that I do look back more fondly on after having not liked it while reading it.
All right, Ruby, would you like to go next, or would you like me to?
Yeah, no, I'll go next. I think because I read this before B did, so I kind of had the same feelings about it as her. I read the manga in a couple of days because I wasn't enjoying myself reading it. I feel bad saying this. I didn't like it.
Okay.
I thought it was really predictable and that the characters were a little unlikable, but I liked, like, there's some things I liked, right? Like that chapter with Hokuto, I really liked that. And I was always hoping, like, okay, as we move along, there'll be more like character development, and then I'll start liking these characters a little bit more because I felt like I was kind of just dropped in the middle without getting to know them before some of like the what would be considered like action would happen. But like same as B, I ended up liking the side stories more. And now that we're like looking back and doing the podcast, I'm like, you know what? It's not that I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I did. I don't know if that sentence made sense, but I was always like, oh, when is the plot gonna happen? When is the plot gonna happen? When are they finally gonna make the big reveal or whatever that's super obvious, instead of like letting myself enjoy the side stories. So now that looking back, I'm like, you know what? I actually did enjoy it more than I thought I did.
Yeah, I think we came away kind of the same, even though for different reasons. Because for me, I was like, I don't want there to be plot. I want them to stop trying to have the plot and just like forget about that part and let the good stuff shine more. But I also never care about plot in anything.
Yeah, and I'm more plot driven. Like, I want to know what happens. So like, oh well, I don't want to start talking about the end yet.
Yeah, actually, say that for next episode. Don't worry. But yeah, well, I guess my thoughts. This is one of my favorite Clamp series. I'm kind of sad my friend didn't suggest I read it until after I'd already gone through X. I think it would have made that experience a bit better for me. But I like it. I like the kind of like the three viewpoints, or like the three character archetypes kind of solidified in Subaru, like the optimist, the person who tries to care for everyone. Hokuto's kind of in the middle, trying to help him establish some like basic self rather than like living completely for other people, having some amount of selfishness, which I think at some level everyone has to have just to function properly. And then Seishiro, who when he shows off his cruelty, shows just how selfish he is, how negatively he sees everything. And it's kind of that the person who looks in the darkness says, yeah, this is fine, rather than trying to, like, I guess, illuminate it at least some bit, like Hokuto and Seishiro are doing.
I think I wish that Hokuto's like pushing of Subaru wasn't in the shape of trying to push like a romance. Even ignoring the details about the romance itself, it just doesn't feel like it wants to be a romance story at all. And I wish that they just been three friends, maybe, or the two siblings and one friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I am a lot more positive on it now than I was like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way.
Well, I had something now. I'm just trying to remember if I had anything else to say. Okay, let me look over the chapters again. But yeah, I think this is a very great setup. And as you said, like the cases themselves, I also just like how they kind of show how magic is affecting what was then the current day. Like, how would someone use magic and a telephone to kind of wreak havoc, even if they think they're doing great stuff? How a lot of people think they're doing something good and something right, even when they are just causing pain to other people for no reason other than their own delusions, or how other people, or how everyone is kind of connected in a way, and how your actions will affect someone else, especially if you're in a giant city. Like, we see how one star's decision to just kind of drop a project ruined someone's life, or how someone else with power can kind of use it and have the unexpected effects it will have on someone else. In the same way that Subaru can see that his use of his powers on people that he's never met, or he hasn't met before, can completely affect their lives, and for the better in this case. I think it's a great kind of testimony to the far-flung effects that sometimes we don't notice it in the actions of our everyday lives.
Yeah, and I think that's reflecting back on that, going through the podcast, I'm like, okay, yeah, that actually is what I really enjoy about this manga. All the little social commentaries and little things like that they add, that not so much forwards the plot, but it's still a super enjoyable read.
So yeah, that's been our thoughts on volumes 1 through 3 of Tokyo Babylon. This is going to conclude part 1 of this episode. We will be back next month with part 2 covering volumes 4 through 7. Ruby, can you come back for that episode? Manuel's probably still going to be out, I'm sure. He'll come up with something.
Yeah.
Cool.
As long as you guys don't lock me in the closet again.
B was going to tell her.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to have to do it. We got to make sure you don't leave like Manuel does. We gave him free reign. See, look where he is now. Please, if you know where he is, please tell us where he is. So, yes, that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you like what you've listened, please just consider following us on any of our social media. We're generally A to J Connections or A to J Info. Or sorry, we're A to J Connections.com. That's A-2-J Connections.com. Because Manuel decided on that when he founded this thing over 10 years ago and never bothered to change it.
That's T-O, not the number 2.
Yes, thank you. Yes. A to J, A-T-O-J Connections on, well, no hyphens this time, on Blue Sky. A to J, no hyphens, plays on Twitch. And I think A to J, no hyphens, Connections on YouTube as well. Actually, and if you like this and want to support bringing you content like this, consider supporting our Patreon, A to J Connections. Once again, no hyphens.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find us if you look.
Yeah, you'll find. I think if you search either one of them, it will come up eventually. Shout out to our Patreon ad for helping us bring you this kind of content and keeping our website ad free.
Give us comments on the podcast, feedback. We always love that and need that.
Other than that, follow us. Or don't. That's your choice, obviously. But hopefully we will see you back next month for the second half of this. For AJ Connections, I'm JD.
I'm B.
And I'm Ruby.
And we'll see you next chapter.